Hi everyone, welcome back to Dave's Whiskey Reviews. We are back. It's a new year, 2019, and we're back with some more whiskey reviews, some more blind whiskey reviews. Got some samples very generously gifted by my friend Mike, and I don't really know what these are, so we're on whiskey review, mystery review number 24. And I'm going to go with this sample first, and we're just going to have a bit of a taste as normal. Don't really know what the whiskey is, and we'll just have sort of a taste and see if we can have a guess at what we think it is. It's a bit cold today, therefore the hat, and so I'm just going to sort of warm the whiskey up a little bit as we go on. Hope everyone's had a nice Christmas and a good New Year as well. We'll have a bit of a look at the viscosity. The colour on this one is I would say light gold, or even straw, maybe. And we'll have a look at the viscosity here as well on this one. I've been given a little clue of these two by Mike, actually. He said that one is more of a kind of normal whiskey that you'd pick up, quite readily, quite easily, and the other is something a bit more unusual. So should be interesting to taste these two and kind of try and figure out which one's which. I'm not going to do both of them today. I'll just do one for the moment, and the other I will do fairly shortly, I imagine, the next maybe next weekend or the weekend after. Again, I'll just apologise very briefly for my lack of content, my lack of videos, but it's been busy with all sorts of things, work and of course Christmas and everything. So the viscosity on this one is looking sort of medium. There's not the legs aren't taking a huge length of time to sort of roll down the glass. Quite a sour one, actually. I would say it's sort of got these lemony, sour dough, sort of fresh, quite fresh and citrusy, I would say. Immediately, it's going to be quite hard to figure out which distillery it's from. Again, because there's a few distilleries that sort of fresh, doughy sort of style to it. And the light colour's throwing me off. If it's something that's quite readily available, a lot of distilleries are adding colouring. It's maybe not quite this this light. Again, because it's cold, just sort of warming the whiskey up in my hands, hopefully is going to release a little bit more from it and give me a bit more of a clue. But of course, it takes a bit longer perhaps to kind of get going when it's this cold. I'm in Wales here, so it's been 0 degrees, 1 degree the last couple of days. So it's been feeling quite cold even in the house. There's not a huge amount of complexity, I would say, to this. You've got those kind of yeasty, doughy notes, the sort of sour lemon, quite young, I would say. There's not a huge amount of oak or sort of interaction from the wood or oxidization from a long maturation in the cask. I'm not sure. It's perhaps a little bit from the new make spirit in there as well. Quite a Highland single malt style of whiskey. Well, the nose isn't going to reveal too much, so maybe let's have a taste. Quite soft, almost weak to start off with, a tiny bit watery, and then it's coming in with these this sort of sharp lemon citrus, which isn't a bad thing. I quite like that. It's quite nice. It sort of cuts through And then these more sort of fat, doughy, buttery notes, actually quite buttery, and a little more oily coming into the finish, with a little bit of oak, but again, not too much. I wasn't sure if I was getting the new make spirit a little bit on the smell. It is kind of reminding me of a few distilleries, a little bit of Jura, but I think they're normally colouring their whiskies Tullibardine Sovereign. That's their sort of no age statement expression. You know, if someone's going to force me to guess right now, I'd probably say that's what it is. Sort of fits with the ABV. It's 43%. Quite light in its colour. And I remember Tullibardine having these sort of doughy, strudel-like notes. And there probably is some sort of appleiness to this, a sort of green apple. I couldn't really pick it up on the smell. It's there on the taste. Now going back to it, I can pick that up. There's a little harshness of the spirit. It's not really coming from the strength of the spirit itself. It's more that there's this sort of harshness that's come through. And you sometimes get that from these distilleries that are maybe making a bit more blended, a bit more whiskey for the blended whiskey market than doing single malts, because they're trying to produce a lot of whiskies. They're heating up the stills quite quickly. You can get that sort of harshness coming through. Lagavulin and Bunnahabhain, they're good examples of that, I would say. Although they make a lot of single malt really as well, of course, but they're well known for sort of heating up their stills quite quickly, doing quite fast distillations, which gives you this kind of harsh, fat spirit that takes maybe quite a few years to mature. Matures beautifully over a longer age, but at a younger age can come across a little bit harsh with this sort of spiritiness. Lagavulin tends to work quite well with it, but I'm not so much a fan of Bunna, mainly because of that. Although everyone tells me that I'm wrong, but that's absolutely fine. Everyone's got their own opinions. This I wouldn't say as either of those. Maybe it could be Bunna, who knows? But I'm not getting that saltiness that you would maybe get from Bunna, or the maltiness actually. There's not too much that kind of malty flavour that I'd expect from a Highland whiskey, perhaps. Maybe there is a bit of salt in there, in the taste, not so much the smell. More towards the back end. Yeah, theoretically, could be a Bunna. But I wouldn't pick this as an Islay whiskey, and I think I need to go with my gut on that. Bruichladdich, that's another option. Quite a young laddie, and that might fit with the colour. That's the problem with these blind reviews. Literally, is just, you know, you can go with your first instinct, and often that's better than trying to like think about all of the things that it could possibly be, because there's so many different options that it could be. You know, theoretically, this could be, you know, from this distillery, and it could be this expression, or it could be that, or it could be this. You know, you could go around in your head for days thinking about these things. So Tullibardine Sovereign, it could be a young Bruichladdich, like the Laddie 8. I can't really think of a Bunna expression that this would be, because the 12, they use a lot of sherry casks, and it doesn't taste 12 years old. It tastes younger than that, and often the younger stuff is the peatier stuff that they're doing. So theoretically, it could be some unpeated Bunna that some supermarket has managed to pick up and done as some supermarket expression of Islay whiskey, perhaps. But again, normally if they're picking Islay whiskey, they're picking a smokier whiskey. So for me now, it comes down to the strength, because the laddie that I'm thinking of, maybe some kind of no age statement expression, maybe the laddie 8, that would be 50% alcohol, whereas the Tullibardine Sovereign would be 43. So I've got to now decide whether the harshness of the spirit is actually perhaps coming from the ABV, or whether it's coming from just the youth of the spirit itself. I would say the viscosity doesn't fit with 50%. Despite that, I'm almost more willing to go for the laddie 8, just because I know that Mike's tastes lean more towards Islay whiskey than it does to Tullibardine. I don't know where he would have, or why he would have picked one of those up. Yeah, and coming back to it now, it has some characteristics that remind me of a young Bruichladdich that I picked up when I was at the distillery and was at cask strength, but quite a young version from a virgin oak cask, and it had these kind of, when you're actually working in the distillery and you're mashing in, you have this real powerful smell of the newly mashed grain that sort of wafts up, and it goes everywhere. It gets all through the distillery, and it's just such a wonderful smell. And I got a little bit of that from that laddie, and I'm getting a little bit from this whiskey here as well. There's kind of slight orangey notes that are coming out now. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, the laddie 8. And we'll see whether I'm right or whether I'm supremely, supremely wrong. But in any case, many thanks to Mike for actually, giving me some samples. Again, some whiskies that you thought I might enjoy. Yes, of course I'm wrong. I was closer with Tullibardine, but not quite there. Oh, maybe I wasn't closer with Tullibardine, because it is actually a sort of peated whiskey. It's a Tomatin, but it's the Bòcan. No idea if I'm pronouncing that right. Almost definitely not. It's the recent no age statement version of the Bòcan, and if you don't know, that's the version of Tomatin which they I can't remember if they actually peat the barley or whether they use peated barrels. I think for some versions they've used peated barrels. I think some of the older versions they've done of the Bòcan, they've used these peated casks, and other versions they've gotten peated barley in to use. And it's funny that, I mean, a couple of people have said that, oh, David, you seem to have trouble, picking up these sort of peaty notes from whiskey sometimes. And it is funny that it does seem to be the case. So I wasn't really I was picking out a little bit of saltiness perhaps, but not really the peat. And it's interesting that I've gone for an unpeated Islay whiskey as my guess. Although originally, I wasn't getting any peat, I wasn't getting any overt sort of smoke from this whiskey at all. But very, very interesting to taste. I don't think I've actually had this version before. I've tasted quite a few Tomatins because I visited the distillery and we had a fantastic tour there. If you're in Scotland and you happen to be nearby, I really do think Tomatin is a very, very underrated distillery to just go and visit, because it's a really, really good experience there. They've got a lot of expressions that you can only buy at the distillery itself. I've actually got one of them here that I haven't opened yet, but I have reviewed on the site. So go check that out. But yeah, this has been very, very interesting to try. And I wouldn't say there's still, even now that I know that it's peated, a huge amount of peat to the nose. But in any case, thank you very, very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. I will be back hopefully soon with more whiskey reviews. yeah, to everyone out there, thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.